I was always heavily keen on dirt bikes, motocross. And as a child, I mean, I had dirt bikes before I had go-karts, and I really wanted to go motocross racing, and it just happened to be that I got a go-kart instead. And it sort of got pushed that way, and here I am. I suppose. Look, realistically, I think given my height, if nothing else, probably bikes would have been a little bit out of the question, at least to be at the elite level, I think. But I think there's a good chance, regardless of what I did as a kid, I think I probably would have ended up in sprint cars anyway, you know.
Go, go, go! And you're doing it, he's in! That's a massive crash, and it's happened immediately! This is amazing! Big shot, and it's lights out, and away we go!
Well, Sam, are you comfy?
Yeah, the couch is good.
Well, couch is good. That's the main thing.
Yeah,
that's the main thing. I've got to ask, man, because you've driven all the way from essentially Orangeville.
Yeah.
How was the trip here at night, going the other way around?
It's not too bad. Like, obviously, you head north on the M5. Well, I came from Ingleburn, so you head north on the M5. You're kind of going against the traffic, so it's not so bad. But there was a crash, I don't know, this side of the airport somewhere. I guess at some point in the day, because I didn't see the crash when I was driving past, but obviously there was still traffic caused by it. So, it wasn't too bad. Too bad.
Yeah. And what about, obviously, how's your family going? Because we were talking off air that, I used to race Meredith and we come from the karting background. And how's she and the kids going?
Yeah, good. Yeah, really good. The kids just keep growing, the unbelievable. I know it sounds cliche, but everybody says they grow up so fast, and they do. They do. They just had their 7th and 5th birthdays. That's pretty crazy. I mean, the little one's going to go to school here in a few months, and mate, just doesn't stop.
Yeah, one of them's into, like, one of them is, or I've heard from Mono, one of them is keen to be like the next motocross champion. What's the kids' names?
Ricky and Harry. So Ricky's a little bit older. He's 7. He's definitely got a little bit more of a competitive streak in him as far as racing's concerned. Harry, although he says he's keen and he likes it all, you take him bike riding and he'd rather play in the dirt with his toys, So I think in years to come, look, it might change, I don't know, but I mean, at this point in time, it seems like he'll be the one to sort of just fall off and maybe do other things. I really don't know. I guess when they're young, you really can't preempt what they're going to do or what they want to do, but just see what pans out.
Yeah, and haven't you got like a huge bike track at the back? Is it the bike track at the back of your place, or is it somewhere else?
No, it's at home. It's not that huge. We've got like 5 acres, and the back sort of there's a paddock at the back that's like maybe a little over an acre or so, and it's quite up and down. So it kind of just lends itself to being a pretty nice little natural terrain motocross track, especially for little bikes. Like on a big bike, it's not that crazy, but on a little bike for a little kid, it'd be excellent. I wish I had it.
Didn't you want to be a motocross rider before being into sprint cars or something? Weren't you more leaning towards that direction when you were
I was always into sprint cars because they were around, I grew up around them, but I was always heavily keen on dirt bikes, motocross. And as a child, I mean, I had dirt bikes before I had go-karts, and I really wanted to go motocross racing, and it just happened to be that I got a go-kart instead. And it sort of got pushed that way, and here I am, I suppose. Look, realistically, I think given my height, if nothing else, probably bikes would have been a little bit out of the question, at least to be at the elite level, I think. But I think there's a good chance, regardless of what I did as a kid, I think I probably would have ended up in sprint cars anyway,
Yeah. Why is that though? Like, obviously, Brooke and I have talked about motocross guys because we've had one guy here. What's the difference? Like, you're saying heights, the height thing doesn't work for being a motocross rider. Why is that? Is it just because?
Look, I'd probably get away with it a little bit because I'm tall and skinny, but in some cases, I know a lot of guys will say that height's actually a good thing because you can use your leverage of the length of your body, basically. But typically when you look at the best guys, they're all not short as such, but tend to be shorter at least. I don't know. Like I say, I'm not a great rider by any means, but would I have liked to have gone down that track? Yeah, at the time for sure, and still I really enjoy them, and I do have a passion for them. But like I say, I think sprint cars. I mean, I like sprint cars a lot. Obviously, I love them. They've been basically my life.
Yeah.
But you know, I like dirt bikes probably almost as much.
Yeah, yeah. And when you were talking about your karting thing, do you remember your first go-kart, your first experience at the track? What it looked like,
so
you know?
I had a couple of goes here and there in karts. I suppose, realistically, not unbeknownst to me at least, I had a couple of goes in different people's go-karts, and I suppose it was probably more so my dad or someone pushing to say, hey, is he actually going to enjoy this?
Yeah.
So they let me have a go. And look, who as a kid that's into car racing, who doesn't, or bikes or whatever it is, who isn't going to enjoy driving a go-kart around? So I think it was, I don't know where it all sort of stemmed from, but I did have a couple of goes prior to owning my own one and naturally enjoyed it. And when it first came about, my first kart, I was 11. I got it on my 11th birthday, and it was actually given to me by my grandmother, who's always been an avid supporter of basically whatever I do, naturally, but especially my racing stuff, because she was always involved in it too, with my dad racing and all that kind of thing. And when my dad raced, typically, or for a lot of years, it was a family-owned car by my grandfather and my grandmother. So, so she'd sort of been around it anyway, and I think she sort of wanted to, push me into the limelight, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah. Was it like I remember racing you in North Shore Kart Club days. You had the orange go-kart. Did you have a kart before that though? Was it like an Arrow or a CRG? Or
so
anything?
I only ever had CRGs or Carlys. I guess the first kart I had was a Carly, and I think Carly CRG, same sort of thing. And look, so the whole time I raced go-karts, they were always CRGs. We sort of got affiliated with CRG and I guess nowadays more so it's called St. George Kart Centre.
Chris Dell.
With Chris, or even in them days it was Peter.
Right.
Obviously Chris was around, but he wasn't in the business as such. So between Peter and particularly Ken Schroeder, we were always, I suppose at the time, they had St. George Karts, which was their wholesale department, and then they had the CRG Kart Centre, which was a retail store in Chipping Norton, and we lived in Chipping Norton. So I suppose that was probably where the easy path to go as far as just close in proximity and so forth. So that's where it all kind of started. And like I say, we kind of were always affiliated with them the whole way through. So naturally, going through the ranks of karts and growing up, you go through multiple go-karts. So all the karts I had over the years were CRGs. So, it was probably, a good thing and maybe a bad thing that I'd never got to try much else. But they honestly, realistically, my karting career without them probably would have been a lot less fruitful.
Yeah. And you obviously hang out nowadays, as I've seen on Instagram, all you boys and girls all hang out together as a group. You pretty much all hanged out as juniors together, didn't you?
Yeah, so pretty well our whole group of friends is the Sydney karters of that age, of that era, you know what I mean? And which is pretty cool. Like, honestly, you look back on it and think like, well, regardless of whether some of them have had any kind of career in motorsports thereafter, if nothing else, we've all made lifelong friends out of it. So it was a cool breeding ground, if nothing else, for friendships, you know what I mean? So, like I say, I mean, my whole group of friends is basically the karters of that era that I grew up with, racing with. And I guess obviously we've got a pretty big interest in all things motorsport. Like, even though maybe not all of them are in or gone on to bigger things or anything like that, we're all still keen on car racing, bikes and different things, whether it's drag racing or whatever it might be. You know, we've all got that interest or similar interest, you know. Yeah.
Can you name the 10? I've tried to remember all the names. He's got Chizo.
Well, Chizo's a funny one. He's actually my mate from school.
Yeah, right.
So he was a bit of a ring-in to the whole clan, but he kind of just rode my coattails in there. But it's funny because he's like the go-karter that never really raced go-karts.
Right.
But his whole family's a really good family friend of ours and my family. So he and his brother Craig Cruz for me has done for years. He's keen as to go racing, you know, like he's just probably the most supportive out of all of them, actually, in that way, because he's just he's always happy to go racing wherever it might be. Like, we went to America in 2017. We sent our stuff over and raced, and I said, "Hey, you coming?" And sure enough, we get to the first racetrack, and there he is waiting for us. So
mad.
He flew over by himself and just hung out with us for a week or two and come racing, you know. So but yeah, so the Chizos were kind of not karting based, but they've obviously well integrated into all the karting fraternity. But yeah, there's a bunch of them, like Ryan Bell, Ryan Monahan.
Yeah. Mono has some shit.
Oh well, yeah, he's always the first to sort of throw punches. Yeah.
But Belly's obviously been a huge supporter of you too, because I remember also doing my research on you the other day. I think you took him out in the 2-seater at Parramatta Speedway a few years ago as well.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. So they were good times when you could do that. There was quite a few people that kind of would request different drivers, I guess, because they obviously had someone that they followed and they wanted them to take them out. And at the time, Sydney Speedway or Valvoline Raceway, whatever it was called at the time, they were sort of happy to do it. So, it was pretty cool, I guess, for those that wanted someone else or someone in particular. And obviously Belly, I mean, we've just been really good mates for probably 25 years now. So it was cool to take him around. And obviously he's always been keen on sprint cars, and not a lot of people get the chance to jump in one. And often a lot of people say, hey, I want to drive one. But until you kind of get a lot of laps and you really don't know or understand what they can do, so you're kind of better off being in a 2-seater where you jump in with someone that's got a little bit of experience at least and can take you around and at least show you what even a 2-seater car's capable of, you know?
Yeah. And obviously we're talking about the sprint cars, but back to the go-karting, there was a lot of underrated drivers back then when you were racing and I was racing, like there's Christian Lindbaum and guys who never made it, as you said, and guys in your group. Is there any particular driver that you thought, shit, he could have made like the next Jamie Whincup? Do you know what I mean? Even though you were racing guys like Jamie back then.
So, well, that crowd was a little bit older than me, but I do remember watching them. Naturally, like Whincup and Winterbottom and all them guys were sort of that few years in front.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the main one to me probably, and he stopped at my place I think on the weekend to have a beer, was Kyle Clues.
Yeah.
He was a gun.
Yeah.
He was always probably, at least in our own backyard, he was kind of the main one that I always sort of looked at as probably the best guy around, you know.
Yeah.
And I think, as luck would have it, things went wrong a lot of times at big races for him, where he probably would have chalked up some runs on the board as far as karts are concerned. But unfortunately, as much as karts are a great area to kind of hone your skills and learn your racecraft, the results you gain in go-karts really don't get you anywhere. You know what I mean? Like you look at guys like David Serra is probably the best example.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's anyone based on karting results and resume from karting, if they should have been anywhere based on that, it's him. And I don't knock him for his ability. Obviously, all the ability's there. It's just opportunity and honestly, money obviously is where it comes down to. And he just hasn't had those. But unfortunately, as much as karting's great, and it teaches you a lot, it doesn't always get you the next step.
Yeah. And is that why you chose your kid? Was that why you taught your kids to go to bikes instead? Just because it's like a less expensive sport, but still competitive? Or did you just...
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, bikes at this point in their life, I think, are more fun. You know, you can take them to a friend's house. You can go to a property. You can go to multiple different tracks and just go and ride and have fun. They're obviously a little bit more accommodating in that fact, whereas karts, naturally, you need to go to a sealed circuit somewhere to go and do anything.
Yeah.
Basically. But the other thing is, obviously, karting seems like it's in a fair bit of turmoil at the moment in New South Wales, particularly.
Yeah. Where there's like 5 different groups.
Yeah, it seems crazy. But that and just the cost. And look, probably the main thing is karts versus bikes. I still feel like bikes, a better rider will overcome bad equipment a lot easier than you can in karts. Obviously, karts, everything and everyone is so close that a driver doesn't make that much of a difference, whereas bikes still rely on talent and ability and not as much equipment. So, look, I think most of the things you learn as a youngster in bikes will prepare you for four wheels anyway.
Yeah.
And look, I've always sort of thought, you know what, if we play bikes for a few years and he says, hey, I really want to go-karting or something, then we'll do it. But I just thought I'll hold him out for a few years anyway.
Yeah. And you obviously met your wife in go-karts through. Does Ferg and that come over? Or is it just?
Yeah, we see Ferg all the time. So Ferg's a big part of it, especially the kids' lives, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Meredith and I met realistically to begin with. We met at like 11 or 12 years old at Eastern Creek, you know.
Yeah.
So obviously years later things change and people grow up and we've been on and off together at least. Well, to begin with.
Yeah.
Turbulent through our late teens and early 20s and stuff, you know, but that's pretty typical, I suppose. And we've been, I guess, together now for, I suppose, from the start, roughly 15 years, but, or possibly more than that, actually, now I think about it. Hope she doesn't do that. Maybe nearly 20, but now that we're sort of grown-ups, I guess we've been together for maybe 10 or 12 or something years, like that.
She was a handy peddler though. Like I was saying,
she has a go. Yeah, she has a go. So I guess that's the kids have got if nothing else, they've got that in them where they're gonna be sort of stand on the gas type sort of deal. But funny story actually about Meredith. I mean, obviously she could drive and she didn't do a lot of racing and she went pretty good, but for how much she did. But we went to a race meeting at Lithgow one day. It was just like a ladies' event of some sort.
Yeah. And
she kept running over this lady. And I thought, what the hell are you doing? Like, you keep hitting her. Like, what's going on? And we drove home, and I think she said, I think I need to get my eyes tested.
Yeah.
And sure enough, she's been wearing glasses ever since.
Yeah, right.
Or contacts anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was thinking she had beef with her.
Yeah, no.
Am I missing something here?
I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, instead of just running up her ass, why don't you pass her?
Yeah.
And she's like, I couldn't see her. I'm like, what do you mean? She's right in front of you. And unbelievable. Didn't know she needed glasses until like, I guess she was probably 19 or 20 at the time. Or so was I roughly. But yeah, so pretty crazy. But I think that was probably the last time I actually drove a two-stroke go-kart. Yeah. Now I think about it, we went down there and did a practice day the day before. But yeah, so she was obviously competitive at times and did a little bit of racing here and then. Naturally, Ferg did the most of it because he was, obviously more interested in it than Meredith was. It was probably just a bit of fun for her. But yeah, we met go-karting and like I say, the same as all my friends, I've also met my wife through go-karting. So I probably owe a lot more to it than I probably realise, you know.
Yeah,
well, Dan was saying to me that she's the one that, held, he was going for that championship and it was her brother that took it first from him, and then Meredith took it from him.
Yeah, right.
every time I was in the top three, Ferg would give it up, and then Meredith came in, and I was like, "Holy shit! I just can't win a race." Right
Yeah.
I rated her though. I legit rated her like a Leanne Ferrier type of driver.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I mean,
well, now she got eyes tested.
Yeah. I drive with her every day in a Link, or in a Prado, and I don't know about that, but she does get around it pretty good, and she's not afraid of it. That's probably the biggest thing. And like I say, if nothing else, my boys have got that to sort of to owe to her as I guess as well as me to some credit. But she's always keen to have a go, and she's not scared of it at all.
Want to hear more? Each week we will share the hottest clips from our guest interviews on YouTube. But to hear the full episode, make sure to subscribe or follow us on your favourite podcast platform.